Action.
Hi, my name is Steffan Replacing. I'm an art teacher and art director here at ISA in China. I'm going to do a talk about replacing empty minds with open minds. A quote originally said by Malcolm Forbes, who was famous for Forbes magazine. And I like that quote because it very much fits into the style of teaching that I teach. And the style of teaching derives or comes from necessity of teaching in the UK and how we had to change from the traditional form of education of banking information and memorizing lots of stuff and then testing students on that. And we had to change our way of teaching to a more creative form of teaching. So here we've got some statistics I'm going to go through with you. So we've got schools grouped 1 to 5, and 1 being like an opulent, wealthy area, and 5 being a deprived area. So they're the different groups in this chart here. And then you've got attainment. Now attainment means students who go on to further education, be it college or university. So we're really focusing in the UK on the students that we're failing and why. And initially we believed that we used to do what we call the 11 plus, and that was supposed to determine how intelligent a student was at the age of 11 and therefore more likely to go on to university. We felt that statistic wasn't quite right, and what was more accurate was students who didn't have, who were given free school meals at school were less likely to go to university. And this chart here shows 2 types of students. You've got students who are eligible for free school meals, which would be the dark blue one, and then you've got the students who are not eligible for free school meals, which would be the light blue one. So in the UK, if you're in a household where your parents are not working, or a single parents, or for whatever reason there's poverty in that household, then when they come to school they're entitled to free school meals. So we know that students from a low income background, whereas the dark ones we know, the light blue ones we know they're from a background, despite the area they live in, they're from a wealthy background. Okay, so that's a massive difference. Now, the big difference here, as you can see, in a nice opulent school in a nice area that gets good results, you can see here's quite a big difference between the light blue students and the dark blue ones. So we know that students will excel to 52.5% if they're from a good background, a wealthy background should I say, opposed to students who are from a less wealthy background. So there's a big drop of 16%. Okay, so we know that a good school, good environment, with students who are from a good background will do 15% more chance of doing better than, say, a school in a poor area with more poor students. Okay, so we only got a 7.9% difference. So what does that tell us? There's only a 3.3 drop between tier 1 school and tier 5. So you've got this whole block of students, around about 3.3% of all the students will learn no matter what the environment is, and this is crucial to understand. So basically what is happening here, the learning environment has changed and the leaders of that environment is changing. So if you allow me, now there's many reasons for this, so I'm asking you to kind of understand where I'm looking at these figures. Of course there's many variables, but if you allow me to kind of sort of just explain how I see these figures. Okay, so you've got the wealthy kids, or the kids from an opulent background are failing in that environment, mainly because, and I've taught in these kind of environments, I've worked in PRUs and I've worked in deprived parts of the UK, because it's difficult to teach in them environments. So you've got this core block of 33.2% will all learn no matter what. You could leave a textbook in a room and they'll still learn and they'll still pass their GCSEs and move on. It's the ones above that are influenced by the environment. So when you're teaching in that kind of environment, you're more constantly dealing with students who are disruptive, who want to disrupt the environment. And also outside the classroom as well. There's no necessity to learn, there's no encouragement from outside the classroom. So who is leading that class? Well, I can tell you now, it's the students who are leading that class. You're overwhelmed as a teacher. It's not possible to teach that environment. So what do you do? What happens if you take the teacher out of the classroom? Yeah? What happens if you take education out of the equation? You move the tests, the homework, the educational values of knowing, the grades, the assessment, the textbooks, all these things that causes a student to fail. All these assessments, all these expectations that fail the student. What happens when you take that away? Well, an interesting experiment happened in, and this is quite a famous experiment, this is nothing new, was carried out in 1999, and Dr. Mateer has been doing this experiment ever since. And initially what he did was he put a computer, it's called the Hole in the Wall project, he put a computer in the slums of India, where these students, these are the ones who weren't going to school at all. So they had no knowledge of computers, the internet, using a mouse, touch screens, or anything like that. And he realized what happened in a very, very short period of time, without that structure of education, that the children would start to learn through necessity. They needed to know how to surf the internet, they needed to know how to get onto Google, they needed to learn how to type, and then they needed to learn to speak English and write and type in English to access things. Okay? So as a teacher, I've realized that I get in the way of that. I prevent it by teaching from the front, by standing up and saying, right, today, student, we're going to learn to type. Today, we're going to learn these words. That type of teaching is very unproductive in comparison to inquiry-based learning. So despite the environment, learning excelled. No one is asking them to bank knowledge, and no one is setting tests or exams. The rewards are simply through necessity, okay, and creativity, which is also something that Sir Ken Robinson talks about in his TED talk called Schools Kill Creativity. Now, this is great, understanding these things, but as a teacher, what does it look like in real life? Okay, so Ken Robinson talks the talk, but does he walk the walk? So what I want to do in this talk is talk about how, as a teacher, do you take these principles and apply them to the classroom? Okay, so this is what I mean by replacing empty minds with open minds, not filling minds. That's the difference. It's open-mindedness. Okay, so it's literally how you value intelligence. Albert Einstein said, the true sign of intelligence is not knowledge, but imagination. And this is coming from the guy, the smartest guy of our century, of our lifetime. He's saying that it's not what you know, it's how you know it, okay? So what is the real value of intelligence? Okay, so it's not knowing as much as you can, but truly understanding the knowledge through discovery. In my lesson, I encourage students to explore the question, not just know the answers. We achieve this through student-led learning and inquiry-based teaching. So I'm going to give you some examples of that. So this is my first week with the students in China. I've never met these students before. And they've never done this type of teaching or learning before. So the first thing I did is, right, we're going to draw an eye. So we did a workshop, drawing an eye, and I asked them questions, and I got this great wall of silence, and nobody was talking to me throughout the lesson. And they all did the work amazingly well, and I set homework MC Escher, and this is the results. So for me, an outstanding lesson is when a student already has a lesson plan in their head. They already know what they need to do to move on in that class to achieve well. Yeah. So already as they walk into the class, they know, I need my sketchbook, I need to get the inks out, or I need to get this stuff out, they already are planning their own learning because they've invested in their own learning. Here you can see this is not quite happening yet. You can see the students drawing an eye, that's what they've been asked to do, and the drawing in the middle is pretty impressive. However, there's no knowledge, there's no understanding. The student has just done their eye, she stuck it in the middle of the page, she's got some references from homework, and that's just about it. And then when she looked at the artist MC Escher, again, she didn't really know what she was doing. She could draw and copy perfectly well. Okay. What is important though is they shouldn't be under any pressure or concern that they will fail the weekly test, or more importantly, fail in education. Because if they're failing education, they're failing to engage in knowledge. We want students to be producers of knowledge, not consumers. So we're moving on now, okay? So we're into the second month by now, I think, and you can see the difference already. Students are moving on, the environment's different. Students are actually taking ownership of the work, they're proud of the work. There's more annotation and better presentation. And what's really interesting is she started to independently cross-reference between different sources of information. She refers to the paradoxes of Escher's hands and things like that, and she also compares them against Leonardo da Vinci's Mona Lisa's smile, not big eyes, and the paradoxical twist behind that. So already this student has progressed and taken ownership of their own work. Even though still we're not seeing student-led learning, we're starting to see inquiry-based investigation through primary and secondary cognitive investigation. And that's crucial to focus on cognitive learning by doing. They absorb information and they become investors of the work, producers of the work and their knowledge through cognitive investigation, for actually doing. At this point now, I think the students are starting to feel a little bit agitated that I'm still teaching from the front at the beginning, still trying to introduce the lesson in a traditional way. And they're feeling a little bit agitated that I'm doing that because I'm taking time away from their lesson that they have in their head. So we're moving away again from the rewards of education, being that grades and the teacher's approval even. The reward is actually now starting to become the process and the outcome of that. So this is the second project we did, and things really changed. So we finished the first one on identity, we moved on to the second one, and this is based on a pottery workshop. So I knew I didn't have to focus on how to do a sketchbook, and so basically I gave them two artists to research, which was Jackson Pollock and Grayson Perry. And what happened next really shocked me, because they took it to another level. I literally was just facilitating their learning, because they took it way beyond what I taught them. So I gave them a workshop on how to do a curl pot. And this is the results. You can see their research. She's trying to make food look gorgeous and then questioning what is gorgeous, what is pretty, trying to combine the two together. And also during the process of making a clay pot, she looked at Barbara Hepworth as an artist because of the shape and form and that nice feminine sort of roundness of it. And then after that, I just want to make some key points here. In the art lesson, the students completed at least 5,000 words in their sketchbooks, which was more than what they do in their English B lessons. Their English skills and confidence hugely improved, again through necessity. And if that's not impressive enough, the students use their skills in the presentation and illustration across all subjects. So you started to see the students making these posters in science lessons as group projects. So it wasn't just in arts, the same skills are being applied across all the subjects. And now this is where we're more or less coming to the end of this project. So I felt that even the pottery was just a little bit too easy for them. So I thought we'll try something at a very much higher level, and this is more university level. So we started doing sculpture, and they just took off of it. We did it together, and I suppose that's the key aspect of this, is working as a collective. Again, not leading from the front anymore. It's just literally just facilitate learning. So that's the end of my talk. So you can see the big difference between taking influences from great talkers on TED Talks and then applying that kind of theory or their knowledges to the classroom is hugely beneficial, and obviously includes all the students ideally, and improves grades overall. So more information on info session for ISA Arts, just scanning the QR code, and that'll be on July the 17th, Saturday. Thank you very much.